Hello TK, for today's reading lesson we will be thinking about story elements. So go ahead and repeat today's objective after me. I can recall story elements. So recall is a pretty big word in our objective. Recall means to think about, to think back to. And we are going to be thinking back to our story, Little Red Riding Hood. And we're really going to be focusing on our characters. So our characters are who the story is about, our setting. Our setting is where the story took place, and beginning, what happened in the beginning of the story, middle, what happened in the middle of the story, and end, what happened at the end of the story. But I'll be helping you, and you will follow along with your activity sheet. It will be activity page 1 and activity page 2. You also have this sheet, page 5, but this is just for extra practice. So if you want to do this extra practice after a video, you're more than welcome to. But all you need for today's lesson is this page and a red crayon and a pencil. So before we start working on our activity pages, I want to go over Little Red Riding Hood with you and the story elements that it has. So in Little Red Riding Hood, we have 4 characters. What are the characters? Characters is who the story is about. So who is Little Red Riding Hood about? Who do we have in Little Red Riding Hood? Who are the characters inside the story? We know that in Little Red Riding Hood, we have Little Red Riding Hood. We also have the grandma, because she goes and visits the grandma. We have the wolf in the story, and we also have our woodcutter in the story. Those are the people that we see throughout the book. So we went over characters. Setting. Our setting is, where does the story take place? When you're reading this story, what do you see? Do you see a city? Do you see buildings? Or do you see a forest and grandma's house? Setting for Little Red Riding Hood is the forest and grandma's house, because this is where the story takes place. So we went over characters and we went over setting. And the last story elements to go over are beginning, middle, and end. All right, TK, go ahead and grab your book so we can go over beginning, middle, and end. In the beginning of the book, we know that Little Red went to go take Grandma a basket, right?
Skipped happily along the path until she met the wolf.
So what happened in the beginning?
Well, hello,
Who did
my
she meet?
dear, said the wolf.
She met the wolf. So that's what happened in the beginning. She was walking along to Grandma's house and she met the wolf. Now what happened in the middle? After she left the wolf, what happened next?
The wolf put on grandmother's nightcap and got into bed. When Little Red Riding Hood knocked on the door, the wolf said, "Who's there?"
Yeah, the wolf decided to pretend and be who? He was pretending to be Grandma. He put on Grandma's nightcap and got inside her bed. That happened in the middle of the story. Let's keep going and let's try and remember what happened at the end of the story. Who came to save the day? Let's think back.
Help! Help! But luckily, a woodcutter who was working nearby heard her shouting and ran to see what was the matter.
So who came to save the day? Yeah, the woodcutter did. He's one of our characters in our story. That was very good, TK. Now that we went over our story elements, I want you to take out your activity page 1 and your pencil. Remember, TK, step 1 is always to write your name. So go ahead and write your first name and last name. So to complete this sheet, we will be going over some questions about our characters. Our first question, who put on Grandma's nightcap? Which one of these characters put on Grandma's nightcap? So if we think back to our story, which one put Grandma's nightcap on? The wolf, right? Yeah, so you're gonna take your crayon and you're gonna underline that character from left to right. Your second question is, who saved Little Red Riding Hood? Who saved her when the wolf scared her? If we think back to our story elements, remember what happened at the end of the story. Who saved Little Red Riding Hood? Which one of these characters saved Little Red Riding Hood? The woodcutter, right? Yeah, the woodcutter did. So we're going to underline that character from left to right. And do you see how my paper is moving? This is why it's always good to hold your paper so it doesn't move. Good job. Now, your third question. Who brought fruit to Grandma? Which one of these characters brought Grandma fruit? If we think back to the beginning of our story, we know that Little Red Riding Hood took her grandma fruit. So we can go ahead and underline that character from left to right. Good job, TK. Now your fourth question. You're going to do this one all on your own. So take out your pencil for this one. Each of these characters had something in common. They all went to whose house? Who did all these characters go see? You're going to answer that question by drawing that character in the window. And when you turn it into Class Dojo, I'll be able to see if you got that answer correct. Okay, TK, now go ahead and turn over your paper and put down your pencil and go ahead and grab your red crayon out again. For activity page 2, you will be going over some riddles with me. You will be answering riddles. So when you know the answer to the riddle, you're going to take your red crayon and color in that picture. Ready? First riddle is, I am soft and red. Little Red Riding Hood wears me on her shoulders. What am I? Soft and red. What is soft and red? And the riddle also said, Little Red Riding Hood wears me on her shoulders. So let's think. What does Little Red Riding Hood wear on her shoulders? If you found that answer, go ahead and color it in. If you colored in Little Red Riding Hood's cape, you are correct. The second riddle says, I am sweet, red, and juicy. People like to bite into me. What am I? Which one of these is sweet, red, and juicy? Which one can you bite into? Can you bite into flowers? No, that would taste kind of nasty. Can you bite into an apple though? Yeah, so go ahead and color the apples. That is the answer to your riddle. Okay, TK, I really want to see that you're trying your best to stay inside the lines and color all the white spaces. Now the last riddle, our third riddle. I smell very sweet. I grow in the garden. What am I? So if you think about the riddle, it said, I grow in the garden. Can flowers grow in the garden? Yeah. So you're going to color your flowers because that answers the last riddle. Okay, TK, once you finish coloring that, I want you to take a video of the front of your activity sheet, and I want to see this question completed about the character who they all went to go visit. And I want you to turn your paper over in the video. I also want to see that you colored your answers to the riddles and that you tried your best to stay inside the lines. Good job, TK, and thank you for following along.